More than 24 years ago, a woman in Northwest Ohio disappears. Her body is found weeks later. It was a devastating blow for her family, left to pick up the pieces. One man is arrested, convicted, and sentenced to death for her murder. But do police really get the right guy? DNA tests may prove otherwise. This is the story of a murder in small-town Ohio that involves lies and deceit, mysterious suspects, and sketchy witness accounts. But the question about who should really die for this crime remains. On a quiet summer day in Elgin, Ohio, not much stirs. With a population of about 90, the post office is the size of a postage stamp. But the memory it holds looms over this small village. Amy Baker works at the post office. She has for decades. But one day 24 years ago stands out like no other.
There's customers standing in here, didn't know where she was at. And I come in and I said, well, where's Betty Jane? And they said, well, she ain't in here.
No one gets regular service here on August 9th, 1982. And for 6 weeks, no one can find the postmaster.
I kept thinking she'll call me back at the house. I'll drop her off somewhere, just got her out of here so she couldn't call the police. And I kept thinking she'll call me. Of course, I never got the phone call.
No one ever gets the call that says Betty Jane Mottinger was safe.
Got the phone call, I don't know, 9:30 or so. And of course, you know, it wasn't good news just to start with.
He said her handbag was found at the post office and they can't find her nowhere. And I said, oh my God, I don't know what we're gonna do.
I think probably everyone in the family felt helpless and lost. Just had this feeling in the pit of their stomach that life wasn't ever gonna be the same.
The woman the town knows as a postmaster, a friend, a mother, and grandmother is gone.
Well, we all respected her and liked her, and when that happened, everybody was just, like I said, devastated.
Amy's devastation is even more personal. You see, Janie wasn't even supposed to be there.
Amy Baker.
It was Amy's day to work the post office, but a death in her family changed the plan.
She told them, since she'd passed away, I didn't need to come in that morning. And I'd work for her later that week. Well,
later in the week never comes. The morning Janie fills in for Amy is her last day on the job.
Disbelief. Not something that's supposed to happen in this little town, Northwest Ohio.
This tiny woman with a big heart and the respect of the entire town vanishes. The search to solve the mystery spins out with a cast of characters. It took 6 weeks, but Janie was found, murdered. Wrapped in tarp 50 miles away in Hancock County, a farmer out with his son looking for butterflies by the Blanchard River finds Janie. He calls the police, and the investigation goes from missing to murder.
It was about 20 feet off the road in a soybean field, and it was laying parallel with the beans the way they were planted.
Detective Brad Bell is the first to arrive on the scene.
It was wrapped in what I call a painter's tarp. It was a canvas material, and it had paint spots all over it, and it was wrapped with a rope tied around the neck and then duct tape tied at about just below the shoulders and down at the knees in that area.
It's estimated a couple hundred people drive by this spot every day before Janie is found.
It was pretty well decomposed.
Not only that, the Lucas County coroner can't even determine exactly when she was killed, only that somebody stabbed her more than a dozen times. Old newspaper reports show the case touched off one of the longest investigations in the history of the Postal Service, the lead law enforcement agency. It is called a crime of opportunity with a motive of murder.
They checked everyone out, everyone, to begin with.
Even Janie's husband, Clarence, and eyewitnesses are scarce.
But then there was an elderly lady who lived across the street from me.
Opal Siebert's eyewitness account states she saw a car and she saw a man. That description leads to a man named Delaney Gibson. But there are questions about what Opal really saw.
There was a semi at the time parked in front of the post office, kind of blocking some of the view.
Other people who claim they saw something are hypnotized to eke out the most remote clues. Officials are stumped for a suspect until, out of the blue, the phone rings.
I had my brother-in-law call the FBI.
The Mottinger case is well on its way to the cold case file units until someone investigators had never heard of calls and says, let's make a deal.
Mr. Spurko indicated to me that he had knowledge of who did the Elgin, Ohio post office job.
Police are so convinced this guy, this John Spurko, is their big break, they put him in witness protection. He keeps talking. Is this the investigators' luckiest break or the beginning of a deal with the devil? Whatever it is, it cost them. 3,000 people in 37 states burn up 15,000 man-hours. The search alone for Janie is massive. But nothing adds up until police get a call that lands a man in the prime spotlight.
John Spurko raised the red flag and asked to talk to us.
He is ready to talk, but only to help himself. The relationship investigators build with John Spurko quickly turns sour.
Each of the interviews, he put himself closer and closer and closer to the victim.
Deadly Convictions with Eleanor Hayes continues in just a moment.